Hi, welcome to MediatorPodcast.com, a podcast and video series about mediation, negotiation, and collaboration. My name is Melissa Gragg, and I provide valuation and divorce mediation services in St. Louis, Missouri. During this episode, we will discuss the divorce mediation process and the Better Apart method with Gabrielle Hartley. She is a leading divorce attorney, online mediator, and author of Better Apart. She's also a vice chair in the American Bar Association's dispute resolution section. And when she wrote Better Apart, Gwyneth Paltrow actually endorsed her book. As a kind of a parting discussion, where do you see the future of divorce and online mediation, for next year, for the next couple years? Where do you see it going?
So I think online mediation as an option is here to stay. I think it's fabulous, especially in high conflict situations and high conflict, high net worth. Very, very useful, because you have to remember, you might say, oh, well, I need to be in person. If you are in person, you run the risk of that unpleasant conversation in the parking lot before the mediation, after the mediation. You have all that stress. Whereas in this kind of context, you can be in the comfort of your own home with a cup of tea, with your legs up and your pajama pants on. You can just be relaxed. You do not have to have uncomfortable moments. You can take breaks. You can, I put people in breakout rooms all the time. You can do all kinds of great things. I think that online mediation is definitely here to stay. I personally love it. When I did my book tour, I started to do online mediation because I had to, because I was traveling so much. And then the pandemic hit and I was already doing it, which was, useful. But I do think there's a set of people who are going to want to continue to have the brick and mortar presence, sort of old timers.
Sure.
And I think there are people who are still going to put some value on the in-person old way of doing things, but I really think it's a big time waste. I think it's much less efficient. I mean, my divorce is, in the beginning of the pandemic, I was doing these flat rate divorces for several $1,000s. And it was like, you had to do a meeting every week for 4 weeks, done. And It was unbelievable how quickly people settled their cases. So I may start to do something like that again. But I think that online is wonderful. You can share screens. Right? I mean, I don't know how you're liking it, Melissa. But
I think that before the pandemic, I wanted everybody to do online anyway.
Yeah.
But it would only be like, well, somebody is not available, or we had a change in schedule and we'll do it. For even my perspective, it's even helped litigation. Like, we do Zoom hearings. We do, things that you were sitting at the courthouse just waiting for hours, that you're charging your client. And then like you talk to the judge, or you do a hearing for like 30 minutes. I think that all of it's going to change. And I think that it kind of made us go a couple years forward. Like, I expected this to happen, but like, in the next 5 years, I was like, this is a long-term plan. And then it wasn't a long-term plan. It was
I think it was going to take even longer than 5 years. I think this forced people. In fact, there are some mediators locally who I was trying to push to do this, because I was like, I love it, because I meet people from all over the country. People hire me because they like me, right? And so it's typically a good fit. Like, you're drawn to people who you get along with. That's just the way it works. And this lawyer was so averse to it. I offered to train her. She's a little older. She's a wonderful person, a great mediator. And she just wouldn't do it. And now she does it. She still doesn't love it, but she can do it, So
I also think you get access to people that you wouldn't normally, 100%. I mean, you can do mediations in any state. Right. I can do mediations in any state, but I can do valuations in any state. And why would you just go and get somebody that's on your street or in your town when you could get some of the best? This is hopefully one time that you do this. And I mean, sometimes not, but hopefully. And so do you want it done efficiently and fair, which nobody should use the word fair, but
Okay, so now you just said two things that I really want to speak to quickly.
Okay.
So first of all, fair, no such thing. I can't tell you, last week I had like 6 people say, I just want to be fair. And I had to go into this whole diatribe about, there may be one set of facts, but there are many truths, many ways to look at that. There's no such thing. But the other thing is about mediation and recidivism. If you arrive at an agreement together and you don't glaze over the important points when you arrive at that agreement is so much more likely to remain sticky, meaning so much more likely to stand the test of time. Now, be careful that you don't hire and finish with a mediator who lets you do an agreement filled with agreements to agree, such as the parties believe that they can amicably resolve the holiday schedule, because the last thing you want is a fight on the night before Christmas.
Yeah.
Write it down, and you don't ever have to look at it again. You've got to fall back, but write it down. I mean, I learned this from working for the judge. So much litigation because of unclear agreements.
Yes. Or if you have younger children and you're like, oh, we'll just deal with college when it gets here. Right. Oh, we'll deal with private school. Like, we can figure that out. And I'm like, okay, but let's at least have a discussion. Right. Because if it is, like if you think you're on the same page, but you're not, let's see how far we are apart.
And by the way, you're never going to be closer when it comes to the children as when you're still like operating as one household. Because then when you recouple and there's other children and other spouses, it's like that much worse, and your kids could get shafted. And if it's in the agreement, actually that saves you, because let's say the agreement punts college until your kid's a junior in high school and your kid is a 6th grader now. Then you get married and you always thought you were going to save money. If the agreement doesn't say, each party to put X dollars away, your new spouse is not going to be happy about you voluntarily putting money away. But if you're contractually obligated to do that, then you're in a much better position. So these are the kind of things that a lot of mediators are not going to think about. They're not even going to be aware of it. So, you need to, if you have a mediator who you love, you may be the one who has to, unfortunately, bring up a lot of these topics. So I hope you're taking good notes. I'm sure Melissa's show is always filled with
yes, people are probably like, okay, this is what I need to do. This is what I do.